I never thought I'd be the kind of man to sit in the dark, staring at a flickering screen, watching my life unravel in pixels and timestamps. My name's Daniel, and I've been married to Laura for 12 years. She's the kind of woman who lights up a room. Blonde hair that catches the sun just right, a laugh that makes you feel like you're in on the joke, and eyes that could convince you the world is softer than it is. We met at a friend's barbecue, her flipping burgers like she was born to it, me fumbling with a beer bottle opener. It was easy back then, natural. We built a life together. A modest house on the edge of town, a garden she tended with care, 2 cars in the driveway, and a dog named Rufus who adored her more than me. I thought we were solid, unbreakable even. But lately, something's been off. It's hard to pin down when it started. Maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year. Laura's always been a social butterfly, flitting between book clubs and yoga classes. But her schedule started shifting. She'd come home later, her cheeks flushed with excuses about traffic or a last-minute coffee with a friend. I didn't question it at first. Trust was our foundation, right? I'm a structural engineer, logic is my trade. I don't leap to conclusions without evidence. But then there were the little things. Her phone buzzing at odd hours, the way she'd angle the screen away from me, the faint scent of cologne on her jacket that wasn't mine. I told myself it was nothing. People drift, I reasoned. Marriages ebb and flow. Then came the night that cracked it all open. I'd been working late on a bridge design, my eyes bleary from blueprints, when I decided to surprise her. She'd said she was at a pottery class, something new she'd picked up. I pictured her hands shaping clay, that focused look she gets when she's lost in a task. I stopped by the florist, grabbed a bouquet of daisies, her favorite, and drove to the community center. The parking lot was nearly empty, save for a few cars. Hers wasn't there. I checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. Class ended at 9 o'clock. Maybe she'd parked around back. I waited, flowers wilting in my grip, until the last person, a gray-haired woman with a lumpy vase, shuffled out. No Laura. Called her. Straight to voicemail. Driving home, my stomach churned. She texted at 9:12. Heading home soon. Pottery ran late. I sat in our living room, Rufus at my feet, staring at those words. The lie was so casual, so practiced. When she walked in at 10:03, her hair slightly mussed, her smile too bright, I didn't confront her. I nodded, kissed her cheek, and said I was tired. But that night, as she slept beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that the woman I loved was slipping away, or already gone. The next few weeks were a slow descent into a quiet obsession. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband rifling through drawers, sniffing out betrayal like a bloodhound. But doubt is a seed, and once it's planted, it grows roots you can't ignore. Laura went about her days as if nothing had changed, humming while she watered the petunias, kissing me goodbye each morning with the same warmth. But I started noticing patterns. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she'd leave around 6 p.m., dressed a little sharper than pottery or yoga required. Crisp blouses, heels instead of flats. She'd return after 10 o'clock, always with a story. A friend in crisis, a group dinner that ran long. I'd nod, but my mind was a calculator, adding up the inconsistencies. I decided to dig. Not proud of it, but I needed answers. Her phone was the obvious start, but she'd gotten clever. Passcode changed from our anniversary to something I couldn't guess. I tried her laptop instead. One night, while she was in the shower, I slipped into the study. The screen glowed to life, and there it was, no password needed. Careless, Laura. I scrolled through her emails, mostly spam, garden supply receipts, a few messages from her sister. Then I hit the jackpot. A thread with someone named Chris. No last name, just Chris. The subject lines were vague. Tuesday. Missed you. But the tone was intimate. Can't wait to see you again, one read. You make everything better, said another. My chest tightened. I clicked further, found a photo attachment. Laura, laughing, her head tilted against a man's shoulder. He was tall, dark-haired, grinning like he'd won her. I sat there, staring until the shower stopped. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking, and slipped back to the couch. When she emerged, towel-wrapped and rosy, I forced a smile. "Good shower?" I asked. She nodded, oblivious. That night, I barely slept. Chris. Who was he? A coworker? A friend I'd never met? I ran through every face from our social circle, every name she'd ever dropped. Nothing fit. But I had a lead now, and I wasn't letting it go. The next day, I called in sick, something I never do, and followed her. She left at 6:15, her car weaving through town toward a neighborhood I didn't recognize. I kept my distance, heart pounding. She pulled into a driveway, a sleek modern house, nothing like ours. A man stepped out to greet her. Tall, dark-haired. Chris. They embraced, her arms wrapping around him like they belonged there. I watched from across the street, hidden by dusk, as they disappeared inside. I didn't move for hours, not until her car pulled out at 9:58. When she got home, she kissed me and said, "Long day." I nodded. Inside, I was breaking. Knowing was worse than suspecting. Suspicion leaves room for doubt, for hope that you're wrong. Certainty strips that away, leaves you raw and hollow. I had proof now. Laura was tangled up with Chris, and every smile she gave me felt like a lie polished to shine. I couldn't confront her yet. Anger was there, sure, but it was cold, deliberate. I needed more details, leverage, something to make sense of how she could do this. So I kept watching, kept digging, a shadow in my own life. I started with the house. Public records showed it belonged to Christopher M. Reed, 38, single, no kids. A quick search pulled up his LinkedIn. Architect, worked for a firm downtown. Successful, polished, the kind of guy who probably owned monogrammed cufflinks. Laura had mentioned a work friend named Chris once, maybe twice years ago. I'd never met him, never thought to. Now it clicked. He wasn't some random fling. He'd been in her orbit, waiting. I found his Instagram too, private, but the profile pic matched the man I'd seen. Smug bastard. Next, I tracked her movements. I borrowed a buddy's car, less conspicuous, and tailed her again. Same routine. Tuesday, Thursday, Chris's place. They'd stay inside, lights dimming around 9 o'clock, her leaving just before 10 o'clock. Once, I saw them on his porch, her laughing as he handed her a glass of wine. The intimacy of it gutted me. How easy she looked with him, how unguarded. At home, she'd started pulling away, her touches briefer, her conversations clipped. I chalked it up to stress. Now I knew better. I needed hard evidence, something undeniable. I bought a small GPS tracker online. Discreet, magnetic, easy to slip under her car. It arrived in 3 days and I attached it while she slept. The app showed her every move. Work, grocery store, Chris's house. I cross-referenced it with her excuses. Book club on Wednesday? She was at the library. Pottery on Thursday? Chris's address. The lies piled up, a house of cards I'd soon topple. Then I got bold. One Tuesday, I parked near his place, close enough to see but far enough to blend in. I brought binoculars, overkill maybe, but I was past caring. Through his window, I saw them. Laura in a red dress I didn't recognize. Chris pouring her a drink. They talked, laughed, then disappeared from view. I waited, my mind filling in the blanks. When she left, I followed her home, watched her slip into our bed like nothing happened. I lay beside her, silent, plotting. By now, I was a ghost in my own marriage. Going through the motions, smiling when she did, eating dinners she cooked while my stomach turned. Laura didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care. She'd gotten sloppy, though, leaving her phone out once, forgetting to clear her texts. I snatched the chance. "You're amazing," Chris had written that morning. "Last night was everything." Her reply, "You too. Can't stop thinking about it." I screenshot it, sent it to myself, deleted the evidence from her phone. My hands shook as I did it, but my resolve hardened. This wasn't just an affair. It was a second life she'd built without me. I started planning. Revenge wasn't enough. It had to be precise, devastating, something that'd strip her of the ease she'd found with him. I thought about exposing her, plastering those texts on social media, letting our friends see who she really was. But that was too quick, too public. I wanted her to feel it slowly, to watch her world fray thread by thread. Chris, too, he didn't get to walk away clean. I dug deeper into him. Tax records showed he'd bought that house 2 years ago, a hefty mortgage he was still paying. His firm's website listed big clients, reputation mattered. I filed that away. I tested her, too. Over dinner one night, I said, "Met a guy named Chris today. Architect. Know him?" Her fork paused midair, just a second, before she smiled. "Chris? Maybe from work? I meet so many people." Smooth, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. I let it drop, but it confirmed she'd lie to my face without blinking. That night, I ordered a tiny audio recorder, delivery in 2 days. I'd plant it in her purse, catch her in the act. Evidence was my weapon, and I was stockpiling it. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances. Took her to dinner, held her hand, even suggested a weekend getaway. She agreed, all smiles, but I saw the distance. She was playing a role, and I was better at it. The recorder arrived, and I slipped it into her purse's lining Thursday morning. That night, I listened. Her voice, light and flirty, saying, "Your trouble? You know that?" His laugh, low and smug. "Only for you." Then silence, rustling, murmurs I couldn't make out. I didn't need to. The betrayal was clear. A knife twisting deeper with every word. The evidence was a mountain now, texts, GPS logs, audio clips of her voice tangled with his. I could have stormed in, thrown it all in her face, watched her scramble for excuses. But that wasn't the plan. I wanted something colder, something that'd linger in her bones long after the dust settled. I started mapping it out, piece by piece, a blueprint for ruin. Laura had no idea the man she slept beside was engineering her downfall. First, I went after Chris. His career was his pride, those sleek designs, the firm's glossy portfolio. I created a burner email, anonymous but professional, and drafted a message to his boss. Attached the audio clip, her voice calling him trouble, his laugh, along with a note. "Your architect's been busy. Clients might not like this." I sent it late one night, imagining the fallout. Would they fire him? Suspend him? At the least, it'd stain his shine. I didn't stop there. His house, that overpriced box he'd leveraged himself into, was next. I found a local real estate forum, posted as a concerned neighbor. "Anyone buying on Elm Street should know. Guy at 1423's got shady habits. Loud nights, strange visitors. Vague enough to dodge libel, sharp enough to bite." Laura was trickier. She thrived on her social web friends, clubs, that perfect wife glow. I couldn't just shame her. I had to unravel her. I started small. At her next pottery night, I called her friend Sarah. Casual like, "Laura's stuck at class, huh?" Sarah paused. "Class?" "She said she was with you." I laughed it off, but the seed was planted. Sarah's a gossip, word would spread. I kept going, dropping hints to mutual friends. "Laura's been so busy lately, always out. Let them wonder, let the whispers grow." Then I hit her where it had hurt most. The garden. She loved those petunias, spent hours pruning them. One night, while she slept, I mixed salt into the soil, enough to wither them slowly, a silent decay she'd blame herself for. Petty, maybe, but it felt right. The next morning, she frowned at the drooping leaves, muttering about pests. I shrugged, said, "Maybe it's time for a change." She didn't catch the edge in my voice. By week's end, the cracks were showing. Chris texted her less. My email must have landed. She seemed distracted, checking her phone too often. I watched, waited, the architect of my own vengeance. This was just the start. The air in our house grew thick with tension, though Laura didn't know why. She'd stare at her wilting petunias, puzzled, her fingers brushing the brittle leaves as if she could coax them back to life. I'd catch her glancing at her phone, waiting for a message that didn't come, her brow creasing when the screen stayed dark. Chris was pulling back. I could feel it, and I'd lit the match. My anonymous email to his boss had done its work. I checked his firm's website a few days later. His profile was still up, but a colleague mentioned in passing at a coffee shop that Reed's been off his game lately. Good. Let him squirm. I kept the pressure on Laura too. The whispers I'd planted with Sarah and the others were spreading. Friends called less, their texts to her shorter, tinged with curiosity she couldn't quite place. She'd ask me, "Have I done something to upset Jen?" Or, "Why's Mark acting weird?" I'd shrug, play dumb. "No idea, babe. People get busy." She'd nod, but I saw the doubt creeping in, the slow erosion of her confidence. It was delicious, watching her unravel without knowing why, her perfect little world fraying at the edges. The audio recorder stayed busy. I'd pull it from her purse each night, listen to the scraps of her life with him. The latest clip was gold. Her voice, sharp with worry, saying, "You've been distant, what's going on?" His reply, clipped, "Work's a mess. I don't know." She pressed, he deflected, and the call ended abruptly. Trouble in paradise. I saved it, added it to my arsenal. Every word was a brick in the wall I was building. A wall she'd crash into soon enough. I upped the ante at home. Rufus, our dog, had always been her shadow, but I started feeding him extra treats, taking him on long walks, winning him over. She noticed, laughed at first. "Stealing my boy, huh?" But then frowned when he'd curl up by me instead of her. It was small, petty, but it chipped at her. I wanted her to feel the shift, to sense the ground moving beneath her feet. One night, I cooked her favorite meal, lasagna, extra cheese, and accidentally oversalted it. She ate a bite, winced, and pushed the plate away. "Sorry," I said, all innocence. "Guess I'm off tonight." She smiled weakly, but I saw the flicker of unease. My plan was a machine now, gears turning, pieces locking into place. I wasn't done with Chris yet. His house, that pristine monument to his ego, was too tempting. I drove by one evening, saw his car in the driveway, lights on. Perfect. I'd ordered a batch of cheap flyers online. Anonymous. Vague. "Beware 1423, Elm Street untrustworthy resident." I scattered them around his neighborhood under cover of dark, tucking them into mailboxes under wipers. Let his neighbors talk. Let the paranoia sink in. I imagined him finding one, his smug grin fading. Felt good, carving away at his life like he'd carved into mine. Laura started cracking. I could see it in the way she moved, slower, less certain, like she was carrying an invisible weight. Her phone calls with Chris grew shorter, her tone sharper. One recording caught her snapping. "You can't just shut me out. What am I supposed to do?" His voice was flat. "I've got enough on my plate, Laura. Give me space." She hung up, and I heard her sigh, long and heavy. I smiled in the dark, listening. Space. I'd give them both all the space they deserved, right at the bottom of the pit I was digging. I turned up the heat on her social circle. At a barbecue with friends, I played the doting husband, arm around her, refilling her glass, but dropped subtle bombs. "Laura's been so busy lately," I'd say, loud enough for others to hear. "Always running off somewhere." Eyes darted, smiles tightened. She laughed it off, but I saw the strain. Later, I overheard Jen whisper to Mark, "She's acting strange, don't you think?" Perfect. Let them dissect her. Let the rumors bloom. She'd built her identity on being the golden girl, wife, friend, gardener. I was stripping it away layer by layer. Chris's life was wobbling too. The flyers had done their job. His neighborhood buzzed with quiet suspicion. I drove by again, saw a for sale sign in his yard. Moving already? I checked online. The listing was fresh, priced lower than he'd paid. Trouble at work must have hit his wallet. I couldn't resist twisting the knife. I created another burner account, emailed his realtor. Heard bad things about that Elm Street place. Might want to dig deeper. Nothing traceable, just enough to spook potential buyers. If he wanted out, I'd make sure he sank instead. At home, I kept the chaos subtle. I rearranged her gardening tools, hid her favorite trowel, let her think she'd lost it. She spent an hour searching, muttering to herself, her frustration mounting. I found it later, handed it over with a grin. "You're slipping, babe." She forced a laugh, but her eyes were tired. I tampered with her car next, loosened a battery cable just enough to make it sputter. She came home late one night, flustered. "Something's wrong with the Honda." I offered to fix it, played the hero, but I'd tighten it later, let her think it was random. Little failures piling up, wearing her down. I lay awake that night, her breathing soft beside me, and felt the first real surge of power. This wasn't just revenge, it was art. I was reshaping her reality, bending it to my will. She'd chosen him, but I'd make sure they both paid, slow and deep. The for sale sign was gone from Chris's yard a week later, replaced by a sold banner. Too fast. Someone must have snatched it at a discount. I dug into the records. He'd taken a loss, nearly 50 grand. His career was teetering, his house a financial wound, and I'd barely lifted a finger. I pictured him packing boxes, cursing the neighbors, the firm, maybe even Laura. She hadn't seen him in days. The GPS tracker showed her circling his street once, then driving off. She didn't stop. Good. Let her feel the void. She was fraying faster now. The garden was a graveyard. Petunias shriveled, roses drooping despite her efforts. She'd kneel there for hours, trying to save them, her hands stained with salt-tainted soil. "I don't understand," she'd say, voice small. I'd pat her shoulder. "Nature's tricky sometimes." Her friends were pulling back too. Sarah canceled a lunch date. Jen stopped texting. At dinner, she'd pick at her food, lost in thought. "Everything okay?" I'd ask, all concern. She'd nod, but the lie hung between us, heavy as lead. I fed the fire. One night, I left her laptop open. A fake email drafted from Chris. "I can't do this anymore. It's over." I didn't send it. Just let her find it. Let her think he'd typed it and walked away. She did, the next morning, her gasp sharp as she stared at the screen. I pretended not to notice, sipped my coffee, watched her hands tremble. She didn't mention it, but she was quieter after, her eyes red-rimmed. I'd broken their thread, or so she thought. The real Chris was still out there, floundering, but she didn't need to know that yet. I hit her harder at home. Rufus wouldn't leave my side now. He'd growl when she called him. A low rumble she didn't understand. She'd laugh, try to pet him, but he'd turn away. "What's gotten into him?" she asked once, hurt. "Dogs pick up on things," I said, vague, letting her wonder. I moved her favorite mug to the back of the cabinet, swapped her shampoo for a cheap brand that dulled her hair. She'd frown in the mirror, touch the strands, blame herself. I watched it all, silent, the architect of her slow collapse. By now, my plan was a symphony, every note precise, building to a crescendo. I wasn't done with Chris, either. His new address popped up online. A rental, smaller, cheaper. I find a way to reach him there, keep the pressure on. For Laura, the endgame was near. She'd betrayed me, built a life behind my back, and I'd make sure she felt every splinter of its ruin. Laura was a shadow of herself now, moving through our house like a guest who'd overstayed. The garden was dead. She'd stopped trying, the tools gathering dust in the shed. Her phone sat silent. Chris hadn't texted in weeks, and her friends had faded into polite distance. She'd sit on the couch, staring at nothing, Rufus sprawled by my feet instead of hers. "You feeling okay?" I'd ask, voice gentle. She'd nod, force a smile, but her eyes were dull, hollowed out by the weight of losses she couldn't name. I'd done that. Me. Chris was sinking too. His rental was a downgrade, cramped, in a rougher part of town. I tracked him online. His LinkedIn hadn't updated, but a Glassdoor review of his firm hinted at recent turnover. I'd nudged that along, my anonymous tips rippling through his life. I mailed a package to his new place. Unmarked, just a cheap wind chime with a note. "Heard you moved. Hope it's quieter." Let him puzzle over it. Let the unease settle in. I pictured him hanging it up, the faint jingle a reminder of his fall. I tightened the screws on Laura. I'd accidentally spill coffee on her favorite blouse, shrug as she scrubbed at the stain. "It's just a shirt," I'd say, but she'd linger over it, mourning the loss. I canceled her yoga membership, told them she'd moved, let her find out when she showed up. She came home flustered, said, "They lost my info somehow." I feigned surprise, That's weird. Want me to call? She shook her head, defeated. Bit by bit, I was erasing her anchors, leaving her adrift. One night, she broke. I'd left another fake email on her laptop. Chris again, this time harsher. You were a mistake. Don't contact me. She found it while I was in the kitchen, and I heard the sob sharp and raw. I walked in, saw her hunched over, tears streaking her face. What's wrong? I asked, all innocence. She shut the laptop, wiped her eyes. Nothing. Just tired. I nodded, let her stew in it. She didn't know I'd written it, didn't know I'd severed her lifeline, but she felt it, and that was enough. I lay beside her that night, her breathing uneven, and planned the final act. She'd lost her lover, her friends, her garden, her dog, everything she'd clung to. Chris was a husk scrambling to rebuild. It was time to bring it home, to show her the wreckage and let her see my hand in it. The cruelty wasn't in the act. It was in the reveal, the moment she'd realize I'd orchestrated it all. The end was close now, a horizon I could taste. Laura barely spoke anymore. Her mornings were quiet, her evenings spent staring out the window at the barren yard. Rufus wouldn't even look at her. He'd pad after me, loyal to the hand that fed him. She'd stopped checking her phone. Chris was a ghost, and her friends had drifted too far to reach. I'd stripped her world bare, and she didn't even know how, but she'd find out soon. I wanted her to see it, to feel the full weight of what she'd done and what I'd done back. Chris's life was a shell. I'd driven by his rental, curtains drawn, a single light on. His car looked older, a downgrade from the sleek sedan he'd had. I sent one last jab, a letter to his landlord, anonymous, claiming tenant issues, noise, odd behavior. Nothing provable, just enough to stir trouble. Let him fight that battle, let him drown in it. He'd taken something from me, and I'd taken everything from him. Fair trade in my book. At home, I set the stage. I printed the evidence, texts, GPS logs, audio transcripts, stacked them neatly in a folder. I added photos, her car at his house, their shadows in his window. I'd kept it all, a dossier of her betrayal, and now it'd be her mirror. I waited for the right moment. It came on a Thursday, her old pottery night, when she sat on the couch, picking at a sandwich she didn't eat. I poured 2 glasses of wine, handed her one. We need to talk, I said, calm as stone. She looked up, wary. About what? I set the folder on the table, opened it slow. Her eyes widened as she saw the first page, her text to Chris, highlighted in yellow. What is this? She whispered. I didn't answer, just flipped to the next. The GPS map, red dots tracing her lies. Then the photos, her laughter frozen in his kitchen. She shook her head, hands trembling. Daniel, I cut her off, slid the recorder over, pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Your trouble? You know that? His laugh followed, smug as ever. She stared, mouth open, as I laid it out. Every step of her affair, every night she'd slipped away. You thought I wouldn't notice? I said, voice low. You thought I'd just sit here? She stammered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But I wasn't done. I told her about the garden, the salt in the soil, her friends, the whispers I'd spread. Chris's job, his house, the flyers, the emails. Her face crumpled, realization dawning. You ruined him, she breathed. And you, I said, leaning close, everything you loved. It's gone because I took it. She sobbed, loud and broken, but I felt nothing. She'd chosen this road. I just paved it. Laura's sobs echoed through the house, a sound I'd once have moved mountains to stop. Now it was just noise, raw, useless noise. She sat there, the folder open in front of her, pages fanned out like a confession she couldn't unmake. Her hands clutched her wine glass, knuckles white, as if it could anchor her against the storm I'd unleashed. Why? She choked out, her voice thick with tears. Why go this far? I leaned back in my chair, sipped my wine, let the question hang. You tell me, I said finally. You're the one who started it. She shook her head, blonde hair falling across her face, a curtain she couldn't hide behind. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, the words trembling. It just happened. Happened. Like a spill on the counter, a careless slip. I laughed, sharp and cold, and her eyes flinched. 12 years, Laura. 12 years, and you threw it away for some guy with a better smile and a bigger house. Don't tell me it happened. She stared at me, mouth working soundlessly, then dropped her gaze to the photos, her with Chris, caught in moments she'd thought were secret. I loved you, she whispered. I still do. That hit me harder than I expected. A jab under the ribs. Love. She had a funny way of showing it. Sneaking off, laughing with him, building something I wasn't part of. I set my glass down, hard enough to make her jump. You don't get to say that now, I said. Not after this. I tapped the folder, the evidence of her double life. You picked him. I just made sure you both felt it. She looked up, eyes red, pleading. I'll end it. I'll fix this. Please, Daniel. Too late. The gears were turning, and I wasn't stopping them. I stood, left her there with the wreckage, and walked to the kitchen. Rufus trailed me, his nails clicking on the hardwood. I poured myself another drink, stared out the window at the dead garden. She followed a minute later, tentative, like she was stepping into a stranger's house. What now? She asked, voice small. I turned, met her gaze. Now you live with it, I said. No friends, no garden, no him. Just you and what's left. She swallowed, nodded once, and shuffled back to the couch. I watched her sink into it, a ghost in our home, and felt the first crack in my resolve. Not regret, just a flicker of something I couldn't name. The next few days were a silent war. Laura moved through the house like a shadow, avoiding my eyes, her steps soft as if she feared waking something worse. I didn't soften. I kept the pressure on, let her stew in the ruin I'd built. She tried calling Chris once. I heard her from the hall, her voice low, desperate. Please, just talk to me. Silence on the other end, then a click. She didn't try again. I checked the GPS tracker, her car stayed put. No more trips to his street. She was cut off, adrift, and I'd made damn sure of it. I wasn't done with him, though. Chris might have thought he'd hit bottom, new place, shaky job, but I had one last play. I'd kept a photo from his Instagram, one I'd screenshotted before he locked it down. Him and Laura, a candid from some night I wasn't part of. I printed it, slipped it into an envelope with a note. She's not worth it. Neither are you. No signature, just enough to twist the knife. I mailed it to his rental, watched the post office clerk stamp it, and drove home. Let him open it, let it fester. He'd know it was her husband, had to, but he couldn't prove it. That was the beauty of it. Invisible, untouchable. At home, Laura tried rebuilding. She bought new plants, cheap ones from the hardware store, and spent a morning digging in the salted soil. They wouldn't grow, I'd made sure of that. But I let her try, let her hope. She'd come in sweaty, hands dirty, and I'd nod like it mattered. Looks nice, I'd say, and she'd smile, fragile but real. It almost softened me, seeing her fight for something. Almost. Then I'd remember her voice on the recorder, laughing with him, and the cold snapped back. She didn't deserve my mercy. She reached out to friends, too. Called Sarah, left a voicemail. I miss you. Can we talk? No reply. I'd poisoned that well deep. Sarah wouldn't bite. Laura's face fell when she checked her phone, saw the silence. They hate me, she said one night, more to herself than me. I shrugged, flipped through a magazine. People drift, I said. She didn't push, just curled into herself on the couch. Rufus stayed by me, head on my knee, and I scratched his ears, a quiet victory. She'd lost him too, and it stung her. I could see it in the way her hands twitched, wanting to call him over. I lay awake that night, her breathing shallow beside me, and planned the final reveal. She knew I'd ruined her, but not how far I'd go. I wanted her to see the full scope, to feel the weight of my vengeance like a stone on her chest. It was coming, and I'd savor every second. Laura's surrender was slow, a crumbling wall I watched with grim satisfaction. She stopped tending the garden, New plants withered in their pots, unplanted, a surrender to the inevitable. Her phone sat untouched, her social life a graveyard I dug. She'd cook dinner, set the table, but the silence between us was a third guest, heavy and uninvited. I'd eat, nod, say, thanks, and she'd clear the plates without a word. Rufus stayed glued to me, a loyal shadow, and she'd watch him, her eyes flickering with loss. I didn't ease up. She'd earned this. Chris's fate sealed itself. I got word through a mutual acquaintance. His firm had let him go. Creative differences, they'd called it, but I knew my emails had tipped the scale. His rental listing popped up again. He couldn't afford it, not now. I pictured him scrambling, packing, running from the mess I'd made. The photo I'd sent must have landed. Maybe it was the final shove. Good. Let him sink. I didn't check further. He was a footnote now, a casualty of my design. I turned my focus back to Laura, the main event. She'd started asking questions, tentative probes into the abyss I'd opened. Did you really do all that? She said one morning, pouring coffee with unsteady hands. The garden, my friends, everything? I met her gaze, steady, unblinking. You gave me the blueprint, I said. I just built it. She flinched, set the pot down hard. I didn't think you could be this cruel, she whispered. I leaned in, voice low. I didn't think you could betray me. Guess we both surprised each other. She didn't argue, just nodded. A slow acceptance settling in. That night, she packed a bag. Clothes, toiletries, nothing sentimental. I'm going to my sister's, she said, standing by the door. I need time. I didn't stop her. Take what you need, I said, and she left, Rufus whining as the door clicked shut. I sat in the quiet, the house empty around me, and felt nothing. Not triumph, not relief, just a hollow space where she'd been. I'd won, hadn't I? Pushed her out, broken her down. So why didn't it feel like enough? I poured a drink, stared at the folder still on the table. The evidence of her fall, my rise. I'd show her one last time, make her see the full scope before she ran for good. She'd be back. I knew her sister wouldn't keep her long, and when she returned, I'd finish it. Laura was gone 3 days. I didn't call, didn't check. The house felt bigger without her. Rufus pacing, sniffing her empty spots, me rattling around in a life I'd hollowed out. I kept busy, though, polished the folder, added a final piece. A printout of Chris's termination notice, snagged from a leaked email I'd found online. It was petty, sure, but it completed the picture. When she came back, she'd see it all, every thread I'd pulled to unravel her world. She returned on a Sunday, her car pulling in slow, like she wasn't sure she belonged. I watched from the window, Rufus at my heels, as she stepped out, hair flat, eyes shadowed, bag slung over her shoulder. She knocked, tentative, and I let her in. Hey, she said, voice small. Hey, I echoed, stepping aside. She set her bag down, glanced around like she was seeing the place for the first time. Sis okay? I asked casual. She nodded. She's fine. Just needed to think. I didn't push, just waited. We sat at the table, the folder between us like a loaded gun. She eyed it wary, then looked at me. What's next, Daniel? She asked. You've taken everything. What's left? I opened the folder slow, deliberate, spread the pages out. Texts, photos, the GPS map, Chris's firing. Her breath caught as she scanned it, fingers brushing the termination notice. You got him fired? She said, voice breaking. Among other things, I replied, calm. His house, his job, his peace. Gone. Because of you. She stared, tears welling, then pushed the papers away. I didn't ask for this, she said. I messed up, I know, but this, she gestured at the mess, the evidence of my wrath. This is too much. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You don't get to decide that, I said. You stepped out, built something with him. I tore it down. That's the deal. She shook her head, sobbing now, loud and messy. I'm sorry, she said, over and over, a mantra that meant nothing to me. I stood, left her there, and walked to the yard. The dead garden stared back, a monument to my work. She followed, still crying, and stood beside me. "Can we fix this?" she asked, desperate. I turned, looked her in the eye. "No," I said. "You broke it. I buried it." She nodded, slow, like she'd known it all along. And in that moment, I saw her. Not the wife I'd loved, not the woman who'd betrayed me, but a stranger, crushed under the weight of my revenge. The end wasn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet unraveling, a thread pulled too far. Laura stayed that night, slept on the couch, her bag unpacked by the door. I didn't stop her, didn't ask her to leave. Rufus curled up by me, oblivious, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The folder's contents burned into my mind. I'd won, hadn't I? She was broken, Chris was gone. Every piece of her betrayal dismantled. So why did the house feel like a tomb? Morning came gray and heavy. Laura was up early, making coffee, her movements slow, mechanical. I joined her in the kitchen, poured a cup, and we stood there, silent, two strangers sharing space. "I'll go today," she said finally, staring into her mug. "Where?" I asked, though I didn't care. "A hotel, maybe. Then, I don't know." She looked up, eyes searching mine. "I didn't want this, Daniel. Not like this." I nodded, sipped my coffee. "Neither did I." She packed the rest of her things. Clothes, a few books, nothing that tied her to me. I watched, hands in my pockets, as she loaded her car. Rufus whined, confused, and I held him back. "Take care," I said as she opened the driver's door. She paused, nodded once. "You too." Then she drove off, taillights fading into the fog, and I was alone. The house settled around me. Too big, too quiet. A shell I'd carved out with my own hands. I checked on Chris one last time. His rental was empty, no forwarding address. He'd vanished, a ghost I'd chased out of existence. Laura's friends stayed silent. Her garden stayed dead. I'd raised it all, a scorched earth of my making. Days passed, then weeks. I worked, walked Rufus, drank alone. The folder sat in a drawer, unopened, a relic of my vengeance. Should have felt good, seeing her fall, seeing him crumble. But it didn't. It just felt done. One night, I sat on the porch, Rufus at my feet, and stared at the stars. Laura was out there, somewhere, picking up pieces I'd shattered. Chris too, maybe. And me here, with nothing but a dog and a house full of echoes. I'd built my revenge, brick by cruel brick, and it was perfect. But perfection's cold when you're the only one left standing. I scratched Rufus's ears, sipped my beer, and let the quiet take me. It was over. All of it.